up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of So. This is the World Christian Podcast. Welcome back. I am your host, Michelle. This is your other host, Jasmine. Thank you for joining us for another week. Before we hop into it, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss when we drop a video. And let's jump into our very first topic. Okay, so to start off our show, we're going to share a clip with you guys from Jordan B. Peterson. This is from, I believe, an hour-long video. And the clip we are going to share with you is about a little over 11 minutes, but we're only going to show you guys the first 2 minutes because this talks about MAID, which is medical assistance in dying. This is what they have over in Canada right now, plus a few other countries have adopted this as well. So let's see what Jordan Peterson has to say on the topic, and then we'll jump in and give our thoughts on it.
MAID, MAID. Expanding into mental illness and the consequences it'll bring to our society.
Okay, so I was pretty sick the last few years, and I was in a lot of pain. It took me usually for about 2.5 years, it took me about 4 hours before I could stand up. And then once I stood up, I couldn't sit down. I was walking, 9 to 12 miles a day. And then by 10 o'clock at night, I was feeling something approximating the worst I'd ever felt previously in my life, but way better than I had in the morning. And then I knew perfectly well that as soon as I went to sleep, it was going to start again. And I put up with that for about 2.5 years, and got to the point where, especially because I was seeing the pain I was in reflected in the eyes of the people that I loved. And I didn't want to have that happen anymore, And so I talked to my family about going to Switzerland. I thought, I just can't do this for the next 20 years. It didn't look like it was going to get better. And then, I tried a variety of relatively extreme treatments, and possibly one of them worked, and I started to recover. And I've been recovering now for about 16 months, probably. And it's been slow, but linear. And things are pretty good again. In fact, they're remarkably good. And, tonight was a highlight for me because my son was here playing, and that went very well. And so that was very gratifying.
Okay. I'm gonna end it there because that was like his thoughts with himself. One thing, because I was watching that, do you know why he was what led to him not being able to stand up for like 4 hours and then he was just walking?
So from what I understand, and if you know different in the comments, please correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, he basically was taking some kind of, I think it's called a benzo, and that's not like the, I guess, super proper name for it, benzo something, prescribed because he was struggling with his wife having cancer. So it was kind of like a psychological treatment or psychiatric treatment. And he became addicted to it. And I don't know if this was part of the withdrawal process from that or just if he was continuing to take the medication. So again, if you know in the comments, then feel free to correct us there.
Okay. Because when he would say he would walk like 9 to 12 miles a day, I was thinking back. I had an old job where I did that. which was like a lot, and it was like a lot on your knees. So him talking, I'm just like, did he have bad knees or something, where it just led to him like struggling to stand and sit and all that? That's the first thing I thought of, but he didn't really, at least in this clip, it wasn't really clarified. So yeah, I didn't know if you knew like the full scope or not. But outside of that, so what I found interesting is that with MAID, which is like a basically assisted suicide, he was ready to end it all just because of the pain he was in. Yet as soon as he got treatment, it was just like, oh, I'm good. I don't want to die now. And I'm like, that's kind of crazy. Why didn't you just look for treatment first?
So I think they did, actually. I think they had to go to, I want to say Russia is where they ended up getting the right diagnoses or the right treatment, because they were
Okay.
having so much problems in North America finding it, or like getting proper care. So I know it was a very long struggle. I'm trying to remember details from interviews that he's done and Michaela, his daughter, has done, discussing the full story.
Okay.
So I'm fuzzy on all the details, but I'm pretty sure that it was a struggle to even get the treatment that he had that ended up working.
Okay. Okay. I can see that because I know this is like big in Canada now, where he's from. And I've seen so many stories where people, like based on quality of life, where they're just like, oh, I can't get my medication, I'm gonna sign up for MAID. And you're just like, whoa, like calm it down. It's not that deep, you know? So
Yeah, and I think some of this, it's a worldview thing, a lot of it, because we've talked about this before. Struggle is it's viewed so differently when you follow Christ versus when you're not.
yeah.
There's an element of, if it gets too much, you have the authority to bring peace. And in this case, the only way that you can bring peace is to end life. And since you are not the creator of life nor the author of life, then you technically don't have a right to end life, even
Yeah.
your own, because you're cutting God's plan for your life at the knees. And I think there is going to be consequences for that. And I think what happens is we need to help people understand that there is purpose in suffering. For example, when I think of Jordan Peterson's story, from the time that he did recover, right?
Mhm.
Look at the fruit that has come to bear since then. How many amazing lectures have been heard through this man since his recovery?
That's true.
I mean, right now he's doing another biblical lecture series. He did Genesis. If you have not watched it, you need to
Really
watch
good.
it. It's so good.
Yeah.
But he's gonna start Exodus, and even now he's had, these panels on Daily Wire about Exodus that are amazing, insightful, incredible. Another gold mine of biblical truth. Um,
Yeah.
all of that would never have happened if he would have ended it. How many millions of people would not have been able to hear those words?
Yeah.
You never know,
Yeah. And I think he believed because wasn't he like on the fence about God? And I think he's starting to come around to that now. So that's another thing that could have been lost if he would have just gave his life away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just like, I don't want to ever be insensitive to the real struggle that is pain and, severe depression. And sometimes when it comes to pain, for example, or a terminal illness, there is suffering attached to it. And sometimes you're not going to get better. It's not in God's plan for you to get better. And it might seem hopeless and what's the point? But that's not our place as humans to decide. And I think
Yeah.
that's why this doctrine of death, this demonic like thing that's going on with the MAID program is so sinister. It's very demonic. It's leading people and coaxing people to death, but if they don't know Christ, then those are lost souls.
Yeah. I also feel like the governments that use this use it for evil as well. So for example, in Canada, if what was it, the wounded vet, it was like a woman, she was in a wheelchair. All she did was say, like, hey, when you guys gonna come build the wheelchair ramp? And they're just like, I mean, instead of sending somebody out, why don't we just sign you up for MAID? And she's like, I didn't call you about dying. I called you about a wheelchair ramp. Or
Yeah.
the people that couldn't get like housing vouchers or something, and they're just like, yeah, we can't give you these vouchers, but we could sign you up for MAID. And it's like, why are you trying to kill people? For like these people aren't asking to die. This is completely different. I feel like
Yeah.
you're abusing this program you guys have approved for your country.
Yeah, it's really sinister. I've heard a lot of stories about that too. And it's supposed to be technically just for like terminally ill patients and things like that. But
Yeah.
more and more, we're hearing stories of people from all over the place just flying over there because they're depressed,
Yeah.
and it's like you can get past this depression. I've,
Yeah.
you know, it just seems like they don't have your best interests at heart. They have
No.
their own bottom line at heart.
Mhm.
And maybe for some people, it's, a Machiavellian evil desire to want to see more death. But I think for a lot of people in the government, especially, it's a lot of finances. It really just comes down to like the bottom dollar. It's expensive to keep people alive, especially elderly, terminally ill. Some of these people are not even wealthy. I've also heard stories of poor people being encouraged to kill themselves
Yep.
this way,
Yep.
and mostly because they're poor. It's really another intricacy of love of money and how that can be evil. Not the
Yeah.
money, but the love of money.
Yeah. There's a country overseas where they were saying if your child is born autistic or if they're autistic right now, sign them up for MAID to not have to deal with that burden. And it's like, why would you do that? That's your child.
It's crazy. I mean, they're
Yeah.
already doing, abortions just for Down syndrome patients, or
Mm-hmm.
Down syndrome, you know, children in the womb. So
Yeah.
it totally makes sense that they would, apply that devaluing life
Yep.
to other aspects as well.
Yeah. That's the part I don't like. Now, telling a person what they can or can't do with themselves, I don't agree with it. I'm kind of like you. I don't think we should be killing what, God created. That's up for God. That's not up to us, but I can't tell somebody what to do.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And it's like if suicides are going to happen, and it's a
Yeah.
tragedy. And I don't know that like you can't prevent that from happening. You can try, but like you can't stop suicides from being something that happens in our world. Our world is broken and fallen, and people make these decisions because they have free will. It's an entirely different thing for me though when the government is providing this like encouragement, this
Yeah.
avenue. I mean, we've seen the commercials of like these like really soft and angelic and wonderful like seaside commercials. Oh,
Yeah.
it's like bubbles. Have you
Yeah.
seen that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's they play that in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
It's
it's like a
weird.
whole different thing for me. Okay, yeah, suicide is a tragedy, suicide is awful.
Mhm.
But then when you see the government saying like, "Oh, but it's like bubbles." And it's like a spa when they come in here. Like, it's so nice. That is like Luciferian to me. That is
It
very
is.
sinister, very evil. This like coaxing you into
Mm-hmm.
death.
Mm-hmm. Because that's exactly what it's doing. I remember when I first saw that commercial, because I thought it was going to be like some, I don't know, clothing company bank. You know how they do like their things like spend money with us and we'll donate 10% to cleaning up the beach or something. Because I thought that's where all that was going. And then they start talking about MAID. And I was like, what is this? What is this commercial?
Yeah, it's wild. It's scary. It's scary because we're in a generation right now where depression and suicides are already through the roof, and we're creating more depressed people because we've taken God out of everything. And then look at what's happening just at the transgender movement, right? Like we're creating these, you know, mutilated children that are going to wake up and realize that the whole world's lying to them. And are these not candidates for suicidality? And what's the government going to do? Hey, come to our bubbly spa and end your life the nice way. I think it's very sinister.
It is. It's completely sinister. You know what? I'm glad you mentioned it's been risen up since they took God out of everything, because I remember being depressed for like so long and I did not know why. Right? Like I in my mind, I'm like, I have no reason to be depressed. I have a house over my head. I have the car that I want. I have a very successful business. Why am I depressed? And I couldn't figure it out for like the life of me, you know? And there was like times where I'm just like sitting in my room just crying because I just can't, I don't know what's wrong. The moment I let God into my life, all that kind of just went away.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it really made me think. And I was just like, you have people that spend all this money on therapists, and a lot of them don't utilize it correctly. Because I know a few people who have been going for years. And I asked them, I'd be like, you know, maybe the therapist isn't right for you, you know, and they just be like, oh, I see somebody to listen to me every week. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. You're paying this person to listen to like you vent about problems, but you're not actively trying to change anything. So what is the point of this therapist? What is the point of going there and they're prescribing you pills and you're just not listening to anything? Like, what is the point? You know?
Yeah.
And I know too many people, like, that's how they treat therapy. Like, they just talking to like a friend about what's going on. And I remember one of the people I was talking to was like this girl, she's younger than me. And I would tell her things and she'd be like, oh, you sound like the other older women in my life. They're saying the same things. I'm like, is your therapist telling you this? Yeah, but you know, I don't listen. It's like, well, what's the point?
Like you're paying money to not listen. See, I don't know. I don't know. I've heard a lot of, you know, problems with therapy like that where it's like, you know, are we really solving anything? And I think sometimes in some situations, I think progress can be made. Like
I do too.
Trauma therapy, for example. I think maybe there is something to it. I don't want to discount it, but yeah, I don't know that therapy is the ultimate answer for most people. I think it can help in some circumstances. I don't think I think God can do a lot more. I think he can heal you. He came to set the captives free, you know?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you, you know? Does depression not feel like bondage? Like a dark cloud, you know, a dark cloud on your soul all the time. You can't find joy. You're locked in it. No matter what you do, whether it's drugs, Reiki healing, therapy, none of it works. But so many Christians are sharing their stories just like you, where once I accepted God and submitted it to God, he healed me.
Yeah.
I want that for everyone.
Yeah. It was that simple. And it's so funny because when I was younger, I never understood how, like, when people would go to rehabs or jail or something, not all people, but you notice a lot of people in those situations when you're down and out and you're in the dark, and then you come back out of that a better person. You're like, oh yeah, I found God when I was in there. And I used to be like, man, all these people be talking about they finding God and he healed them and all this. That's just an excuse, right? But then those same people that say that, they never go backwards. It's not like they ever jump back into the nonsense. They're healed. They just keep going forward, living life, sharing their testimony and gospel. I never understood that when I was younger. I was just like, all these people can't be going through. Why they got to go to jail to get a spiritual transformation? You know what I'm saying? I was very ignorant.
Yeah, and it's
So,
like this is what I was alluding to earlier, where we don't understand suffering. God
yeah,
will allow us to suffer so that when we realize that we've exhausted all of our options, then we can realize he's there. Like, just turn to me. I'm not going to force me on you, but can't you see that all of the solutions that the world gives to you, all the things that you keep trying, none of it works. You're still in this place. Just turn to me and I will help you.
yeah,
That's what he wants. And I wish more people could view suffering in that way. There are so many beautiful stories of people who emerged from suffering so much stronger than we could have ever, imagined.
yeah,
But instead, our culture is like, avoid suffering at all costs, numb all your pain until you realize none of that works. You're living like a half life. And then you look at, this Canadian commercial talking about bubbles and peace. And it's like, it's so awful. It's so awful. I just, you can get through this. If you're watching this right now and you're just exhausted of being depressed all the time, what do you have to lose? Just try
yeah.
it.
I actually saw a good clip earlier before we hopped on here where they were talking about in the Bible who wrestled God. I think they said Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they said when Jacob was wrestling with God and he put God's hand on his hip and he was just like, I'm not leaving until you heal me because he had that limp or
With
whatever.
the angel, yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't get healed. Instead, they changed his name and gave him a purpose, and he kept moving on with that. And then they start talking about how like you think you're suffering, you need to be healed when you don't know what God's doing with your suffering. He's making you a new person. Yeah, that's basically everything you're saying now. Oh, now I wish I could find the clip because I
Well,
really want to play that.
well, if you do, maybe we can feature it in the next
Yeah,
episode.
yeah. If I refind it, we definitely have to run it back for another podcast because it was really good. It's from a whole different Christian podcast. All right, guys, let us know what you think about MAID in the comment section down below. And who knows, maybe we will pick your comment to talk about on next week's episode. All right, guys, after the podcast, make sure you go check out Jasmynne's channel. It's called Bold Reflections YT right here on YouTube. She basically discusses topics about life, faith, and culture through a Christ-focused perspective. Everything you're getting from her here, you're going to get way more over on her channel. She's done interviews with people. It's awesome. When you get the chance, hit the link in the description box down below and go check her channel out. You will not regret it. All right, y'all. So last week we got a bunch of interesting comments. I will say the AI sex robot podcast was not y'all favorite, apparently, because wow, are we horrible people for saying that was wrong? But let's jump into the first comment. This is actually not from last week's podcast. Somebody watched, I think this is from the QAnon podcast, if I'm remembering correctly, but this is from Darlene. And they say, thank you and thanks for laughing at the white supremacy. If I do that, they call me racist as a white woman, yet I don't have one bone that's racist. Darlene, I'm glad we were able to give you a laugh with that. So I get it. White people are down bad right now.
Like, anytime I hear the word white supremacy in 2023, I'm just like, you lost me. You just lost me.
Pretty much.
It's ridiculousness.
Also, white people, it's like if you don't have white guilt and you're not trying to be the white savior of a minority, you are a racist.
It's so dumb.
I don't know where that came from. I don't know how that started, but it is funny. Have you ever heard when a white person is just like, I don't see color. I view us as equal. We are all the same. Have you ever heard them say around like a black person or another white person that has white guilt and how they freak out on them?
Yeah, like I thought colorblind was supposed to be good, but you know what? Even if they're hating on it, I don't care. Like, obviously we all see color. Like, hello, like she's black, I'm Hispanic. Okay, what's the big deal? I think it's cool.
Oh no, black people don't see me as black, so you can't say that.
Well, whatever.
Apparently, I am Spanish to them, so
Just it's all arbitrary. It's all dumb.
it is. It's so stupid.
I love learning about other people's cultures though. So like all this like all cultural appropriation, it's so woke and annoying and it's just like
It
bye.
is.
Bye.
It is. Can you imagine saying that, like, oh, that's cultural appropriation? I can't believe you like Mexican food and you're making it at your house. And it's like, okay, so that means you can only make your food then, if that,
Right.
and only eat your food and all this other stupidness.
It's like go live your sad life somewhere else, please.
Right. All right, next comment is from Purple Honey. She just keeps coming every week.
Hey,
Our
Purple
regular.
Monday.
She says, I miss the days where just showing your ankle and shoulder was showing too much. Oh no, that's so funny to me. What went from that to AI sex box? By the way, the virtual singer you were talking about, I believe, is Hatsune Miku. That's what I was talking about. I have to show you this.
Okay.
All right, guys, we're gonna get off topic for like a slight second. This is the hologram I was telling you men in Japan were marrying by like the droves.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
hologram. Oh yeah, no,
Wow.
I have to find this. Let me turn this down. I don't get hit with the copyright. This is a whole hologram. This isn't real. Men in Japan are so infatuated with this. They are marrying this, right? They're getting actual certificates saying they're married to this, but like you can't have a hologram in your house. And this is what they're putting over the Japanese women. So the Japanese women have just started dating and marrying foreigners because they're just like, okay, well, if our men don't want us,
Wow.
we're gonna keep
That's
it
wild.
pushing.
I mean,
Yeah.
it looks cool, but like marry it, guys. Come on. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, so it's turned into, so a lot of men over there are called hikikomoris or neets, and it's basically like you just live in your house, like you don't ever leave. You're in a room technically at your parents' house unless your parents kick you out, and then they end up getting a room smaller than my office right here, and they just live in that room, and their parents pay the rent and they give them the allowance for food, and they never leave, and they just stay in there, and they marry handheld girlfriends and AI bots. This is what you guys were fighting for, the Americans that didn't understand what I was talking about. Because I'm like, this is not a new concept in the other parts of the world, but
It's craziness. It's craziness. God wants us to have abundant life. This
I'm
is why it's a
saying.
problem. Sure, you have the freedom. You can live in a box if you want to. And have your relations with robots and holograms and porn all day, whatever. But that is not abundant life.
Yeah, you like they have no human interaction. So the women are just kind of like, I'm trying to be with somebody. So they've started dating the foreigners that have moved over there to do like the school work or whatever else work they do are allowed to do. And what has it turned into, this used to be a nation where they were like so about pure blood and you couldn't become you couldn't get citizenship and stuff over there. They have now started to change their tune because they're just like, oh, our population numbers are going down. And the men here are just sexless because they rather have sex with body pillows and robots. So because the women keep going to the foreigners, they're just like, we're gonna have to start accepting these foreigners as like citizens and stuff so our numbers can go up. So
Wow.
I'm telling y'all this, but no sex
Crazy.
robots. All right, let me finish the comment. Also saying is that baby store that was closing next to Five Below and Marshalls, because I went to a baby store called Bye Bye Baby in Warrensville, and it was closing too with huge deals. Purple Honey, you know too much because we live in the same city. So yes, you are right. That's the place I was at. They're gone now though. I think they're like, I don't know. When I told the story, I think there was like 7 days left or something. That they're done now. And I can see why they were OD expensive. So if you caught deals out there, and any of you Clevelanders, Kudos to y'all. A couple of days ago, I was watching this video with Big Nick and Isaiah Saldivar, and they spoke of yoga too. At that point, I already knew of how dangerous it was, but I had went on without telling my best friend about it too. Man, I was so convicted about it that I prayed to the Lord that night and asked him to help her realize the dangers. The next day, she told me she hit a wall with yoga, which made me confess to her about the prayer. Before I knew it, I told her everything. She hadn't really pushed back at all, just thanking me for letting her know. Funny how God actually pushed me to telling her in the end. I pray it one day settles in her heart. Wow.
Wow. Good job for being bold, Purple Honey, because that's
Yeah.
not easy. It's not easy to do because, you're opening up yourself to like, oh my gosh, she's going to think I'm crazy. So it's easier to stay quiet. But you loved her so much that not only did you pray for her, but then you told her of your conviction. And, maybe you planted a couple seeds. I don't know where your friend's at spiritually, but hey, good job for your boldness. I just want to say that.
Yeah, God definitely listened too, because the very next day, for the friend to be like, hey, I hit a wall with this, God listened and was like, don't worry, I got you. I got you. We'll put a stop to this. You'll
That's
tell her
awesome.
she'll be okay. All right, our next comment is from Daniel Isaac, and it says, it's here whether anyone likes it or not. You can't stop technology, even with your subversion of government. So cry about it all you want. It's here to stay, and it's a good thing. I'll tell you right now, AI sex robots are not a good thing. Okay. Since we are from America and most of the promotion gets done in America, our population numbers are going down. Just so we're all on the same page about that. This isn't going to help that in the slightest at all. And this also plays into the World Economic Forum's plans for depopulating the earth, whether you guys want to admit that or not. Now, do I believe that the World Economic Forum is going to hit this number by 2030 like they want to? No. There was stuff they wanted to hit by 2012 that they're just now breaking ground on today. So, do I think it's going to be done by 2030 and then 2050? No. But are they putting the plans in motion that you all are just readily jumping into? Yes, they are. Okay. So
I don't get what, even with the subversion of government, even with your subversion of government, I don't get that. What
I
does
don't
that mean?
care.
I'm not subverting the government. I got no power to do that. What do you mean? I just don't understand. But anyway, no, it's not a good thing. And I think that
No.
for you to, and listen, we all have different opinions. All right. We're coming from a Christian worldview, so we're going to see things differently. But I feel like there's like, this is like surface level thinking where it's like, instant gratification. Technology's good. It's here to stay. It's a good thing because women nag too much or something like that. But can we think it, like Sang said, the depopulation is a problem already in Japan. This is going to bring this to the United States even further than it already is. And all of the spiritual implications. There's going to be more enmity between men and women. I don't think it's a good thing. But hey,
Not at all.
whatever. You do your thing, man.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not subverting the government. I don't know what that means.
All right. Next one is from Charles Council. Charles says, I bet those sex robots don't nag or whine. How could that be negative, dark, or icky? Sounds more like winner, winner, winner. And then it says Cherry 2000. I don't know what that is. Once again, I don't know why you guys are like so caught up on like, oh, I don't want to hear women nag and whine. It's me having sex with a robot isn't bad. It is. It is. You know what I was thinking? Why? Because it seems like a lot of guys are like really like, I'm tired of dealing with women, so I'm just gonna go this route. How about we just fix the issue instead of turning down this street of
Saying that's too much work when you can have sex with a robot and a machine. Like,
I know, but their mentality reminds me of like the pro-choice people who are like, oh, it's better to kill this baby than put it up for adoption. And you're like, why? oh, because the adoption system and foster care, it's horrible, it's broken. It's like, so it's better to kill the kid? Why not just fix that? Why don't we all work together to fix this so it can be a good option? No, kill the kid. This is what all the guys sound like. Because it isn't just our comment section. When we read Brett Cooper's comment section as well, they all were saying the same thing. I'd rather have sex with a robot than deal with women anymore. How about we fix the issues that were created by feminism? Like,
Well,
how about we do that?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And to me, it's like, I think of marriage sometimes maybe differently than some of these people, where it's like, oh, she's
Yeah.
nagging and whining again. No, no, no. But it's like, first of all, you think you don't contribute anything to that, number one. And also, there's something that Jordan Peterson has spoken about before, where one of the beautiful things about having a wife is that she pushes you to be your best self.
Mhm.
And it might not always sound pretty and it might sound like nagging and whining, but really it's because sometimes, and I'm not speaking for all women, okay? But sometimes it's more than just like this stereotypical, okay, so like there's a stereotype that women are just like this modern woman, feminist, nagging, whining, entitled. And I get those people exist. But in the same way that men don't want to be stereotyped as like stupid, clumsy, lazy, idiot, horn dogs or whatever, like don't stereotype women that way. Like, come on. That's probably why you're not having so much luck and that you want to turn to the sex robot to begin with, is because you're not respecting. I sound like a feminist right now. You're not respecting women. I can't stand feminism, okay? I think it's stupid. But also, you guys, this sounds childish to me. No nag or whine. Stop doing all the dumb things you do too. None of you are perfect. None of you are perfect. Neither are the women. Just the whole thing is ridiculous.
But I think we touched on this last week too, when we were just like, because it also comes down to, where are you meeting women? Just like I tell my female friends that always be like, men ain't ish and they're all this or that. And it's like, well, where are you meeting these guys at that you keep having problems with? Like, what's the quality of guy you just keep falling for? Because that's truly the issue at the end of the day. If a lot of you keep saying like, oh, I keep having these issues with women, where are you meeting women at? And like, what is the quality of women you're also going for? Because if it's all about this and nothing else, like you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, moral character matters a lot.
Yeah, if you're not dating with intention too, like if you're just dating just to date, or I want to have a one night stand or something, you're gonna have a bad time with dating. And that's on both ends of the aisle. It's not just with guys, it's with women too. So you guys got to start thinking about that. All right, last comment of the day is from Ed Steely. Ed says, I appreciate your comments. These do, however, suggest some level of naivety with regard to domestic law, especially in community property jurisdictions and long-term male-female relationships. Your podcast suggests that most couples don't have enough material property to fight over in divorce settlements. So I said that. I didn't, and basically, I meant more so like all the younger commenters saying they didn't want to get married because they're like, they were saying they were in their early 20s. They didn't want to get married because they didn't want a girl to get half their stuff. And I'm just like, you don't have anything at 20. So that's what I was saying. But we'll get into that in a second. While most young couples begin marriage in simple circumstance, 10 years later, the financial landscape is likely to be quite different. Most young men have observed their fathers, brothers, and other men being destroyed by outdated domestic law. Furthermore, experience and data suggest that women misappropriate or manipulate intimate relations with their spouse more than once during a marriage. While the motivations vary, few, if any, rise to the Corinthian examples of real, surrendered love suggested by the marriage vow. Instead, some partners are almost prisoners of the marriage. In a non-tech environment, these hostages have but one option: suffering. You just talked about suffering. Those injured simply want something to end the pain of neglect and punishment. Plainly, in a world where neither partner has taken a vow of celibacy, AI seems to offer a remedy, which is neither adultery nor divorce. So why would that be a not wait, why would that be okay, why would that not be a compelling reason to redirect sexual attention to an AI over the live but recalcitrant partner? It's not a rhetorical question.
Well, first, I want to say thank you for your comment because it was thought out, it was respectful,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate that, unlike some of the other ones so that we get sometimes. I'm just like, okay. It's okay that you disagree.
Yeah.
I would say I completely agree with the first part where you're talking about um the way men get screwed. They get screwed in the court system. That is so true, and I've seen it in men in my own life. Like, it is really ugly, and I think I would disagree with you saying a little bit on, you know, oh, well, you don't have anything, so what are you crying about? Like, no, they probably don't have anything in that moment. They probably don't. Maybe they have a little bit, but where could they be in 10, 15 years with this partner that their marriage is falling apart? This woman could leave them scarred emotionally, and take their kids and cause trauma between father and children, and just it could get really ugly. And I do understand um men wanting to avoid that completely and settling for something like pornography or AI, or just like more of a hookup lifestyle to avoid that real serious financial emotional risk. So I agree with the commenter in this sense. What about you? What do you think about that?
So I do agree that in long term stuff is acquired. My view on it is because I view finances very differently from most people. So the way I view financial aspect of things, if your house and your cars and other things aren't fully paid off, that's debt to me. So when I see people split up, I'm like, you're just splitting debt between yourselves. So I get you guys acquire these things together, but that's just kind of how my brain works. Um, I do agree that the laws do need to change because the guys do get screwed over with the laws. And I feel like we should work to change that as a community than just like, well, we get screwed by the court system, so let's just have sex with robots. I think that's kind of wild. I think that's a wild thing to jump to. It's like, why don't we just fix this?
And
Not, I know that's not easy, but like, I rather we all, men and women that agree on that, work together to fix this aspect of life than to just be like, well, it is what it is.
yeah, and it
So,
almost seems like a daunting task to do that. So I do sympathize so much with that sentiment. Like, it really is. I have sons. So like, I care about this a lot. I personally, like, I'm a little fearful in, like, I'm trusting God with the process, of course, but it is daunting to think about my sons ending up with women who will destroy their lives in some way. Let me say, can destroy their lives in some way. It's scary. So
it
I
is.
totally sympathize with that. Now let's address the part where he's talking about because of the fear of divorcing and losing things. um I'm pretty sure that's what he's trying to say, that they're being held hostage, so it ends up being where AI sex with AI. What did he say? Hold on, let me read that again. Okay, so because they haven't taken a vow of celibacy, instead of adultery, then we have the option of AI, and isn't that better? What do you think, Sang?
Not really. I feel like there's this worldview that women have like tons of multiple partners, just like men do. in the secular world side of things, because I know usually if people grow up in a religious household and they actually practice it, because it's a whole different, just because you grew up in a religious household doesn't mean you're religious. But if you grew up in a religious household and you actually practice it, usually those people take that seriously and they're not having sex before marriage and multiple partners and stuff. But I would say there's people out there like that. I didn't grow up in a religious household. I didn't have multiple partners. My husband's been my only partner like my whole life. So when a guy's just be like, oh, girls be capping about their body count, and it like, how can I trust this woman? And she's just, all women sleep around and you can't trust them and blah blah blah. It's like, that's technically not true. There's women
Well,
out there that's like me. Now there are women with,
yeah.
it just
And
is what it is.
I would say to that, I would say, maybe you're an exception. Maybe I'm an exception. Maybe because we're a little bit older, it might be a little bit different comparing to the women who are up and coming now in a world where we've gotten really far away from, maintaining, a covenant in marriage and saving yourself. We've gotten really far from that. So maybe some of the women now, they are pretty high body count. Maybe that's the majority. I'm not really sure what the numbers are on that. I would just refute that little point right there.
I
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Because I grew up with girls like, they started having sex in like 4th and 5th grade. Their body counts were pretty high, and I knew a lot of them. I just didn't do what they were doing. So my whole life, I've been around men and women that's been sleeping around from a very young, weird age. Because that should have never happened. We're talking about 4th and 5th graders. That should have never happened. But yeah. So when I hear body counts now, that's how it was when I was younger, though. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, and maybe the fact that even with people being like that and you still chose differently, men, there are women out there who are choosing differently. They choose not to live that life. So it's, don't fall into the thinking that like it's hopeless because there's no good women out there. That's not true. And I
But
would
I think
say,
that's what the mentality is, though.
yeah, and that's why they're so, open to the AI
Yeah.
sex robot thing, because they already perceive, oh, it's hopeless out there. The dating scene's completely, and it's dismal, but it's not hopeless.
Yeah.
And the reason I care so much about this is because I have a great marriage. You have a great marriage. Like, it can happen and marriage can be beautiful. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
the narrative of what happens when you pick the wrong person. This is why it's so important that your values line up, that you guys take your vows seriously, because it can be beautiful. I'm telling you, man, like, no AI robot's going to be there for you on your deathbed. I've lived this out. I've almost died. And I can't state enough how much finances did not matter. The only thing that mattered to me was my husband and my kids. So, look, I'm not going to get teary-eyed. Stop it. But I'm serious, man. Like, marriage is something incredible. And when it comes to, okay, what is the point of sex? God designed it for a reason. I'm not coming up with this originally, but I really like the way that somebody put it. They said it is both unitive and procreation. It's for you, like, to unify us, the bond between male and female, husband and wife.
Yeah.
Husband and wife.
Yeah.
And to bring life from that. Be fruitful and multiply. Sex has a purpose. And anytime that we deviate from that, that's where the problems start to arise. We don't know what it's going to look like with the AI robots and things like that. We don't know how bad it can get. But this instant gratification of, like, I don't really have to solve marital issues because I have this other outlet. I'm a hostage. We can't, we're too irreconcilable. So just give up. Like, you're missing out on the whole point of it.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, because I know you said you know a lot of guys in your life that got like screwed
Mm-hmm.
through stuff. I know a lot of guys too, friends, family members, stuff of that nature. Do you believe, because this is like a running theory I have, that a lot of stuff happens because people, when we talk about picking the wrong partners and we want to talk about red flags in relationships, do you believe that a lot of red flags just got missed, or they see it and it's just like, oh, but I love this person, right? You got those rose colored glasses on, so you're just like, I'm gonna push that to the side because I really love this person. Do you think that's what happened? Because I don't believe a person is just like one way and then randomly 15, 20 years later it's like, haha, I'm this brand new person now. I feel like they've always been like that, and there was just always maybe mask slips or something that showed the true nature, and it was just overlooked.
I think there could be something to that. Absolutely. Especially for women, but of course for men too, where it's like, no, we're going to work this out. This is nothing. Oh, it's not really that big of a deal. It's really not. It's fine. Or I want this. I have a vision of what I want. But because maybe there's no submission to God, you haven't prayed about it. You want to be your own God. You want to write out your life exactly how you want to do it, and you're willing to overlook things, or like there is something to the Holy Spirit's guidance. And if you don't ask for that guidance and you're not interested in knowing anything about it, it's all hokey pokey whatever nonsense to you, then you're gonna do your own thing, and you're gonna end up in situations where maybe you had a blind spot, where the Holy Spirit could have guided you in this direction, but you chose to turn that off. So you're like, all right, I'm gonna do whatever I want. But absolutely, I think that people miss these things, or they make excuses for them, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think about that because out of everybody I know, I'll just give an example. So two people I know that got divorced because their wives cheated on them. And obviously that happens in the moment you're heartbroken because you're like, oh, how could you do this to me? But when I really think about their situations, I was like, were you really that shocked because you were the side dude at the beginning of the relationship? So like they were cheating on their ex with you. And then, that turned into them getting caught. So then now y'all just a couple instead of you being a side dude. And now you're trying the relationship with them. So it's like, were you really that shocked they cheated on you? Because like that was the first red flag in the relationship. It is like tons of instances like that. It's not just with cheating or anything. I know somebody else is going through it right now in terms of financial issues, and like knowing their whole story, I'm just like, are you really shocked that happened based on how you guys met and it involved money? Like that was the first like red flag, and you kind of just like, I like them.
Yeah, definitely. I think that could be the case. Just
Yeah,
some people have cognitive dissonance about things, and when the heartstrings get involved, and when there's sex involved prior to, it clouds things even further. Yeah, I don't know. It's not good.
it does. I've thought about that, and then I also thought about there's things that a lot of couples don't actually talk about in the beginning of the relationship. So as time moves on, because you're two separate people at the end of the day, if you never talk about certain things and you move forward and you're thinking one thing and the other person's thinking something, you guys aren't on the same page and you're just clashing. I could see that being issues too, because when me and my husband got together, we were teenagers. So there definitely was not things we talked about as teenagers that we talk about like now. So there was definitely a lot of like clashing as we grew together. Now, at a certain point, you fix all of that, but it just makes me wonder if people ever had those conversations either.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with like this like wedding culture, and like, oh, we have such a
That's a problem too.
yeah, like
Yeah.
we're missing the point of what marriage is supposed to be. This is a lifelong, not even a promise, but a covenant. There's
Yeah.
something really deep to this. The Bible talks about, you become one flesh,
Yeah.
not two people holding hand in hand and going forward. One flesh.
Yeah.
I don't know that people view it like that. And so they don't even think to have these kind of conversations prior to.
Yeah. And that's another issue too. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it says in the Bible, you leave your mother and father, cleave to your wife, you become one flesh, right? What ends up happening, in a nutshell, you and her are now your own family. So everything is about you two. And then obviously if you have kids and stuff, everybody else is not a part of that. And I know we like to be like, oh, but my family has these holiday traditions and we have to do it. Or my mom said she was going to be there regardless. So she has to be there, even though your boundary is you just want it to be us and blah, blah, blah. These are all fighting points as well. And people need to understand, once y'all become together like this, y'all the family now.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it used to be with your family, your parents, your siblings, they have to respect this, like, moving forward. And a lot of families don't do that. And it becomes rough, because if you and your husband go through it, say you go through it with his mom, right? That's his mom. He has to check her and be like, hey, you doing a little too much. That's not your job, because that's not your mother. But if he doesn't step in and like check his parents or siblings or whoever is overstepping y'all family boundaries, that now becomes an issue for you, because now you just like, I'm getting tired of your family. Like, you need to fix this. It's like, oh, they don't mean any harm, and it's been like this my whole life. It's like, no, you got to fix that, because that causes strain too.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. But yeah, thank you for this comment. That was, I
we went
love
on
it.
a whole thing.
Hey, and I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, that was a good comment. So thank you, Ed. If you're watching this, thank you for the comment. All right, guys, that's everything from last week. Let us know what you guys think. And like, as always, with whatever we're talking about, let us know what you think. And maybe your comment will get picked up for next week's episode, and move on to the next topic. All right. So speaking about marriages and submission and being one with one another and not robots, I ran across an interesting clip where we're going to get into a whole conversation about submission, the secular version versus the biblical version. So as y'all can see, it says here, y'all here for it? Bride refuses to say wedding vow about obeying your husband. She says, we didn't talk about that one in counseling. So very short clip. I'm gonna run it for you guys real quick, and then we'll talk about it.
In sickness, and in health, to love, cherish, and to obey.
We didn't talk about that one in counseling.
We did talk about that in counseling. Yes, we did. So you want me to repeat that again? You want to just keep going?
I think we can keep going.
All right.
I love how the preacher was upset.
Wouldn't you be if you did marriage counseling with them and she still says that on the wedding day?
That's embarrassing.
That is embarrassing. I'm so glad you said that, because I was like, that is just, I wouldn't know how to feel if I was the husband.
Yeah. I mean, he laughed, but
you know that,
I don't know.
That cut deep.
Yeah. Wow. That cut me deep. I'm like, oh my God, man, what are you doing?
Yeah. Okay. So submission, because that's what obey is, right? We usually hear from, on the secular side of things, men and women. What do we usually hear from women when you hear the word submission on the secular side? They'd be like, I'm not about to be your slave. I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. I'm not cooking. I'm not cleaning, yada, yada, yada. And I know every guy watching this right now is like, see, sex robots. But we usually hear that from the female perspective in the secular world. And then what do we hear from the male perspective, right? Usually red pill guys. If I'm the head of the household, she's going to do exactly what I tell her to do. She will submit to me and she will do whatever I tell her to do. And if I want to bring more women into the relationship, she's going to just have to accept it, because that's how you submit to me. It's like, that's not really biblical either. Like, both sides are so off on what submission means.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's it has such a negative connotation in our current culture. Like even obedience with children, like people start looking at you like that's abusive. But it's
Which is
like
crazy.
it is, but we just have like this like new way of thinking, which there's nothing new under the sun. But this current iteration does not understand sacrifice at all.
Yeah, they don't.
And I think, well, as we're probably gonna see, you have a clip here, and also we have the verse that we're gonna refer to. But yeah, there's a mutual submission. It's not just women, you're a slave, and men, I do whatever I want. No. Far from the truth.
Yeah. Let me play. So we're going to play like a few minutes of this Mike Winger clip because his videos be long. But I think this is a good clip because you shared this. And what he says is actually like really good.
All the problems of man started in Genesis chapter 3.
Facts.
When Adam and Eve ate of the tree. And what is said specifically about the husband and wife relationship is really telling. In Genesis 3:16, God says to Eve, to the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Now that's interesting. That phrase, there's a lot of debate over that. The desire for your husband, that just means she's really going to love her husband. No, okay, loving your husband is not a result of the curse. In fact, if you flip to Genesis 4, you'll see that God's speaking with Cain, and he uses the same language when he tells Cain, sin lies at the door, and its desire is for you, but you should rule over it. Meaning that sin wanted to rule over Cain, like sin wants to domineer over Cain, but Cain should have control instead. And so knowing that same language, in the Hebrew, same language, he says, your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. So that there will be, because Adam, you did not submit to me. Eve, you did not submit to me. So guess what you guys are going to have a problem with? Submission. It's going to affect the husband and the wife here. Oh! And it'll be a natural sin nature tendency for the wife to not want to submit to the authority of the husband. This doesn't mean there's something wrong with women that isn't wrong with men. I mean, if it was the other way around and men were submitting, they would have the same thing said about them. And you won't want to do it because we have sin nature. We just don't like the idea of submission in our sin nature. Now, in our new nature in Christ, it's a different story. We see, I think we see the beauty of it. We see the goodness of it. But the issue started way back then. So,
okay, I got to stop it there because this is really long. It's really good, but I can't. Y'all see, we would be watching.
Listen, y'all need to watch this video. Okay, like watch his whole sermon on this to really understand this idea of wives submit. And then the very next episode that he did, the next Sunday when he preached the next sermon, and it's the next one in the playlist, that is about men and what they are called to do as husbands. And it's very powerful. It really opens up the Bible verse, Ephesians 5, I think.
Yeah, it's 5. I actually got it. I could put it up right now.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, but guys, I'm gonna put the link to that video in the description down below so you guys can just watch it on your own. But look what this says here. Instructions for Christian households. Because of course, nobody else is gonna know this. But in the very beginning, what are we told? God is number one. And the closer that each of us is to God, the husband and the wife, the closer they are to each other. Everybody needs to understand that, okay? But anyways, I'm going to read this real quick. It says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Now, this is the part right here, when we say wives submit to your husbands as submit to your own husbands as you do to the Lord, right? Red pillars love this. They love this, but they always skip this part right here, which is the very next part, where it says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. This whole part is usually red pillars will never tell you this. They will only quote this one part of the Bible where it says, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands. And they will play on that all day. And it's like, yeah, read a couple more lines.
Yeah, and even read the line right above it. Submit to one another, not just wives submit,
Yeah.
but husbands submit too.
Yeah.
Out of reverence for Christ, out of respect for Christ, out of fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
We're called to submit to one another. So when I see that clip of the woman, we didn't talk about that in counseling. There is a real concern of whether she is submitting to the Lord, because if you're not willing to do what this verse is telling you to do and obey and submit and respect, then there's a heart issue going on there that appropriately this husband should be worried about.
He should be. I don't know. That's embarrassing. Like, I think afterwards, because they're gonna say yes and walk down the aisle and all that. I would have to pull her to the side once everybody got their little photo out the way, and I would have to pull the pastor to the side too. And I'd be like, we need to talk about this real quick, because like, were you truly joking up there, or do we need to still be in counseling? Because what was that?
Yeah,
that would bug me so bad. But for those that don't understand, women too, this whole part is for us as well. So when you be like, I'm not submitting to no man, and they always do it in terms of chores too. And I never understood that. It's like, I ain't cooking and cleaning. It's like, well, that's a very basic human adult function. So you should be cooking and cleaning regardless if you're with somebody or not. So I don't understand why all of a sudden a man can't get that out of you. You should be doing it anyways.
Yeah, it's just it sounds lazy to me, but at the core of it, it's just like the pastor said, it's from Genesis. It's a sin problem. It's a sin problem because we want to dominate. We want to be on top. We want to be, you can't tell me what to do. And this is the same problem that we have when we don't submit to Christ. We want to be in control. We don't want to submit to God. We want to be the gods of our own life. It's the same sin that is putting this word of submission into a whole tailspin that we have to argue about it, and this woman embarrasses her husband in front of the whole church, in front of the pastor. It's just awful. It's so bad. Like, oh man,
I cringe. I hope, well, I'm be real, I hope they're doing okay, because I don't know how old the clip is. I don't know how long ago it was, but what's it called when like you get a divorce but it's like within the first year? Because it's not. Yeah, I hope that did not happen. I'm gonna be real with you. I hope it didn't happen, but if I'm that guy, I'd have to be looking at her sideways. I'd be like, why did you do me like that in front of everybody? That's not funny.
Yeah. Ugh.
It's like, we have a submission problem already. It's like, we just started.
It's craziness.
It is. It truly is. But all right, guys, let us know what you think about submission in the comment section down below. Do you believe in the secular worldview of submission? Do you believe it in the biblical worldview, which obviously we believe is how it should be? Just let us know. And obviously, if we like your comment, we'll pick it to read for next week's episode. Hey, once the podcast is over and you guys have a minute, go ahead and check out my channel. It's titled It's Your Girl Saying. Basically, I go over life topics, Christianity topics. I live stream every Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m. EST. On Mondays and Tuesdays, we do what's called the Conservative Christian Show, where we go over all the topics in culture and we look at it through a Christ-focused perspective. You know, on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I have a show called Christian Game Room where I'm playing video games, but in between segments or pausing the game or whatever, we're having talks about the Bible. We're having talks about God, right? You guys may even bring things to my attention about what's going on in certain areas of Christianity. We just have nice long discussions about all of it. And if you're into any of that, gaming, culture, Christ, all of it, make sure to check out my channel. You will not be disappointed. All right, y'all, last topic of the day. We're going to watch maybe 2 or 3 minutes of this clip. This guy basically explains his experience where he says he actually went to hell after having a heart attack. So let's jump into it and see what he has to say, and then we'll talk about it for a second.
So the first thing you felt was yourself falling.
Yeah, it's like
But you're in a car. What do you mean?
In my mind, I went to a place of like, I can see my body falling from my eyes. I can see what I'm seeing, but I can't react. It's like a sunken place. That's real. I know it's just, movie and things like that, but that is real. Where like you can hear and you can see, but everything is so distant, there's nothing you can do about it. And I felt myself falling away from my eyes. And then all of a sudden, I let myself go straight to hell.
Straight to hell.
Mm-hmm. Before that point happened, my soul left my body.
What was that like? I mean, how do you know your soul left your body?
Because it was an aerial view. I was passed out or going what I was going through first and then passed out, but I can see where my dad was going. I told him the lanes he was changing. I told him the cars he was going behind, everything. Dad was.
So after you came back, you told your dad everything that happened while you were passed out.
While I was passed out.
And you were like in the air looking at it?
It was like I felt like an eagle looking down. I can see almost the whole city, but I can also see my dad at the same time. It was something unbelievable. And then when it got to that point, I went straight to hell.
Went straight to hell. How do you know it was hell? What did you?
Number one, it was a very short fall. You go from an aerial view and then boom, I could feel myself get pulled down immediately. I went straight to hell. And when I get there, it is not like a lot of the movies and some books and stuff. It's nothing like that. It's hot, but there's no fire, but it's very hot.
Just say that again. That's an important point. You said it's hot, but there's
no fire. It's hot, but there's no fire.
Okay.
It's like molten rocks. It's like molten rocks. It's really hot. It's really orange. It's glowing. I'm talking thousands of degrees glowing. Like it's not supernatural in the way of heavenly, but this is still a supernatural thing because the ground is thousands of degrees, but your feet aren't burnt. You're very hot, but you're not passed out.
And see, a lot of people don't realize that the Bible actually says that hell will one day be cast into the lake of fire.
Yes.
So hell right now is not necessarily the fire, but the Revelation says it will one day be cast into the lake of fire.
Yes.
So you saw that place right now. Where do you think it was? Because you say you went down. Where do you have any sense as to where you were?
If I had to take an educated guess, I would say more like the center of the earth is what it felt like. It felt like the center because it's glowing, molten rocks all around you. It's like people are standing on shells of rock. It's very hot. It's glowing. You're very thirsty. You can't breathe. You're extremely hungry. There's extreme torment. I mean, the odor is terrible. I mean, everything about hell you can imagine is everything bad you can imagine life is what hell is. You can't breathe. You can't talk. You're in torment. You're screaming. It's very hot. It's not fire, but it's very hot. You can't seem to grasp the concept of real life because it's all of your worst. Just for a second, take your worst thoughts and your worst experiences and stretch that for eternity. I mean, take the deepest hurts and the deepest things, the worst mistakes, all of those things, and the devil puts it to where like you are thinking about that stuff so much, you are losing your mind for the rest of your life, for eternity, forever. We're not talking about 10 minutes. We're not talking about having a bad day or a bad week or a bad shift at work. We're talking about for as long as time could ever last, eternity, you're going through torment, losing your mind.
Now,
Okay.
Wow.
So the rest of that clip, because I know I cut it short, guys, but it's a 7-minute clip. The rest of it, he goes on to explain his aerial view, where he literally saw his dad driving them to the hospital and everything. And he was able to, when he got back in his body, he told his dad everything he saw, like the cars he was weaving in and out of, the streets he turned on. So, you know, for him being passed out in the car, there's no way he should have known that. So once he told his dad was kind of like, whoa. So, you know, he believed him when he said those things. I'm gonna ask you first. Have you ever had an experience where, I don't know, have you ever hell, demons, heaven, God, Jesus, angels?
No, I've never had anything like that. You know my story. If you don't know it, check it out on my channel. But it was very much nothingness. I didn't die though. I almost died, but I didn't actually die. So no, I've never, nothing like that.
Okay. So I've never died either. So I want to put that out there. But I remember in the very beginning becoming a Christian, other people who were Christians were just like, you're going to deal with spiritual warfare. And I was like, well, what's that? And they're like, you know, things are just going to mess with you. And I'm the type of person, I've never liked the dark. I've never liked horror movies, things of that nature, demons, ghosts. That's just, you know, not a Christian, but I believe in these things at the time, right? So they're breaking this down to me, and I was just like, "Ooh, that sounds spooky. Like, I don't know if I want to deal with that, right?" And I remember I have the video on my channel where the day I decided to become Christian, I'm talking about these same things, not realizing that all this stuff is around us, right? So I think looking back on it now, I'm like, they probably were messing with me because they knew it's like, oh yeah, she's not going to deal with this for too long. She ain't going to be a Christian. She'll be right back, right? They probably thought I was going to stay an atheist or something. I went through the weirdest spiritual experiences in like my first couple months. So literally those first 4 or 5 weeks, as soon as I said, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a Christian. I got my Bible and I started doing Bible studies. I was sick for like the next 4 or 5 weeks. It was so random and it was out of nowhere. And it was just extreme sickness. And I don't know where that came from. I'm just kind of like, maybe that's the evilness leaving my body. I don't know what that was, but it was very weird. And during that experience and after that experience, I dealt with one period where it felt like I heard somebody walk in my room, and I'm still afraid of like just the darkness. And I'm usually home alone most of the time. And I'm not afraid to say this on here because like I got weapons and stuff. So if somebody want to play, like you're not leaving my house alive at this point. But you pair that with just like I'm afraid of the darkness and all this other stuff. And I slept with a weapon under my pillow. And I just heard the footsteps and it came in my room. And I'm like, oh, somebody done broke in the house. That was my first thought. And I was like, that's cool. They come near me. I'm just go back in one motion, stab them, and we going to go from there. However the fight plays out, it plays out. Person got behind me and they leaned and they touched me and I felt it. So I was like, okay, I'm a stab. So I took my weapon and I leaned back, but I went all the way back. And once I realized where I was, it was my room, but it wasn't my room. Like I'm on my bed, but everything around me was darkness and flames. And the only thing that was lit up was what should have been the bathroom across my room was like, I don't know, like if you go see a play, like the curtain came down, it was like this curtain, and it was just this demonic voice was talking to me. And it was like, the only way you got to get out of here is you have to go through 7 different levels and you have to survive to get out. And I'm like, what? And like the first level was literally like this animal was like attacking me. I didn't know what to do. And they were like, you have to kill this animal. And I'm like, it was attacking me. So I killed this like little geese thing. It looked evil. It had fangs and stuff. I don't even know what to classify it as because it wasn't like a real life animal. And then they just have like from there, this like blanket lifted up, and it was a kitten, but it looked like my cat as a kitten. And they was like, you got to kill it. And I'm like, I'm not killing that cat, bro. Like it looked like Trunks. I'm not killing this cat. And this demonic voice is like, so I don't know. I just started yelling back at this voice. And I was like, you know what? I'm not playing your game. Like me and you, why don't you show yourself and stop being like scared? Mind you, I'm nervous. I'm scared. And next thing I know, my body's getting like lifted up once I started talking back to this thing. And it was just like, don't worry, you'll be back. And I'm like, and when I came to, it was weird because when I came back to my body, the way I woke up, I was like, and I'm just looking around the room and it was like light everywhere. So I'm like, this weird. And it like this weird calmness washed over me. And I was like, I don't know what that was. Time goes by and it like happens again. I have like another where I guess I go to sleep and I don't ever feel my body drop anywhere. But like when I'm awoken, it's still my room and my bed. And I'm like, at this point, I'm still doing Bible studies. I'm still trying to learn scripture and all that. And this thing just kept like, it was the same demonic voice. And it's like, I was back at the same place, but things looked slightly different. And it was like, it was toying with me. Like, I don't know if it was trying to scare me or something. And that's when I did a live stream and Nikki was like, you have to tell demons stuff like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ or whatever. And you can't be scared and all this other stuff. She like did this whole breakdown for me when I was on live stream. So I was like, all right, this happens again. I'm going to just do that. It hit me while this thing was messing with me. And I was like, you know what? I'm not scared of you. Why don't you just show yourself? Because you keep hiding behind these curtains and blankets or whatever it is. It's like, show yourself. I ain't scared of you. Like, do something. And the next thing I know, I was like, you know what? I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. Because you ain't about to do nothing, anything. The blanket, curtain, whatever, finally dropped. And I saw what the demon looked like. And it was like a mix of like, I don't know if you ever watched Stranger Things. But like the last season, there was like a monster called Vecna, which looked weird. But then there's also this anime, and I don't really watch the anime, but it's called like Attack on Titan. And it's like,
Oh, I've seen that one.
It looked like a weird mixture of both, but it was just like tall. It looked like it was like 7 feet tall or something. And it just looked angry. And next thing you know, I'm just like, yeah, you ain't I'm just talking mess to this thing. And like my body starts getting lifted again.
Wow.
And it
That's crazy.
say you'll be back. It was very angry that I was like not scared. And I don't know, when I came back once again, it was just like like it felt like I jumped into my body or something. It was a weird way of waking up. And then once again, it was like light everywhere. This weird calmness was over me. And then I was just like, oh, I was like, that wasn't too bad. I was like, I ain't really scared of none no more. And it's like, I don't know, ever since then, I'm not afraid of the dark no more. I don't have these weird thoughts where I just be thinking like stuff is in the house when it's not. I don't know. I'm at peace and I'm cool. And it took a minute to get there. But to that point, a lot of weird stuff was happening up until that point that wasn't happening prior to me saying like, oh, I'm going to be a Christian.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's wild. I don't know, man. That it's just so cool how we have authority to fight back against this stuff because of Jesus, not because of anything we've done other than believe in him and accept him as our Lord and Savior. But because we've done that, because we have faith, we don't have to fear these things anymore. And I think that's so cool. Yeah. And it's so interesting that you had an experience like that, honestly.
Yeah. Because like I said, looking back on it, I think it was just kind of like, oh, this is what she's afraid of. We're just going to play on that. And then she's probably going to stop doing all this because like, why would you keep doing this if all this weird stuff is happening in your house like nonstop? And I don't know. I just didn't stop. I'm like, at some point, this is going to end. And it finally like did.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
I don't know. Yeah. I think it's also, somebody said this after like my last experience. They were like, you know the story of Job. So they were like, God isn't gonna allow anything to mess with you. Like, because basically, the way they said it in a nutshell, they were like, God knows you're not about to fold. So if the devil has to go to him for authority to take you down once you give your life to him. So God is so like set on you not folding. He'd be like, go ahead, do it. They're not going nowhere. They're not going to leave my side. That's basically what with Job. All the stuff he went through, he didn't stop believing in God. He didn't stop praising. So
That's true. That's true. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that reminds me of a scene in The Chosen that I just saw today. Oh my gosh, unless I get accused of being a false convert or something.
that's why
But
we were
it's-
laughing, y'all.
But yeah, there's a scene there where one of the disciples, you know, he has a limp and Jesus is healing everyone, and he, you know, he's just kind of disheartened, like, you know, why not me? And he's like, Jesus says to him basically, like, you know, how much more is your faith because I haven't healed you and you still believe in me? There's not many people that I could trust to have faith in me, even despite me not healing them, but healing other people instead. And you still choose to follow me.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus, I love you, Jesus. You're so awesome. It was a
It's
good one.
true though. You have to have that faith because it's all going to work out in the end anyways. And a lot of people don't understand. I think a lot of people want that instant gratification. And if they don't get it, they're just kind of like, oh, this is some BS. This is some nonsense.
Yeah.
This doesn't work.
And what is the devil trying to do anyway? Trying to use fear.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, in your case, that's what was happening there was
Yeah.
there was a fear element. Like, we
Yeah.
want to intimidate you. You want to be scared. And that's where God's word is like, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. It's really comforting.
Yeah, it is. So if y'all don't know, like when we talk about every week, when we're like, you gotta be 10 toes down for Jesus, and we talk about the helmet of salvation, the armor, the sword, and all that, y'all really gotta be like on it. You can't just jump in and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna ask God to make me like a millionaire, and then it don't happen, and you're just like, nah, this isn't real. He didn't answer my prayers of making me rich. It's like probably because God knows you're not meant to be in that position right now because he knows you're going to F it up.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of treats God like a genie in a bottle, kind of.
Yeah.
And if you don't get your way, then you're like, this genie's not it.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're missing the whole point. The point is that he gave his blood so that you could have eternal life, not material possessions. If he chooses to bless you with those things, then hey, that's great. But that's not the point.
Yeah, it's not. The whole thing is what is I don't remember the book. But in the passage they say when you do his work other than spreading the gospel, you're supposed to take care of the orphans and the elderly. That's like one of the main things he like cares about, if anything, you know. So when you see Christians doing a lot of charity work, they're not just doing it. Some might, because I know some people think you got to follow a law to get into, you know, heaven and stuff. But a lot of Christians, usually when their life turns around, they start doing a lot of charity and stuff. That really is from like the heart because they know what it is at that point. And a lot of people don't understand that. They really don't. They view charity as like I gotta go to the soup kitchen on Saturday morning. I want to go to the mall. It's a waste of time. It's just like, well, why did you sign up for this?
Yeah, definitely. And we've taken advantage as a society of the goodness that has come from the body of Christ because of Christ transforming our lives. Mm-hmm. That we try to put more good out in the world, like charity. Mm-hmm. You know, hospitals have been opened up, humanitarian efforts, just things like this to change the world. I mean, a lot of science, as we discussed before, it was religious men who were trying to discover God's goodness. All of these things are attributed to God and his goodness, but as a society, we've just completely discounted those things. So it's kind of sad.
It is. And I feel like if we got back to that as a community, as well as a lot of other things as well, but if we got back to that as a community, helping fellow man instead of turning everything into like race and sex and all this other stupid nonsense, right? If we all start looking at each other as one instead of separating each other over stupid, nonsensical things, I feel like everything would run better. I mean, I also understand that's not going to happen because, we know how the story ends, but things would be better if we were to go down that path. And it's hard to get there because I remember telling that to some people who aren't believers, and like the first words out their mouth is that they ended up making it about race. And I was like, I'm literally telling you a game plan on how not to make this about race.
Yeah.
Like, this is about all of us being like as one. And they went in the very next words out their mouth. But what about this race that's holding this race back? And I'm like, you didn't listen to anything I just said.
Yeah. Some people, man, they don't want to hear anything that challenges their narrative at all.
Yeah, that's true. It's sad. But all right, guys. Have any of you ever had any spiritual experiences? Have you seen demons, angels, hell, heaven, any of that? Let us know in the comment section down below. Now, that would be interesting to read in the comment section out next week. So if you have, let us know because we would love to read it. All right, y'all. Well, that is the end of our show. Thank you for watching another episode of So. This is the World Christian Podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Michelle. Your other host, Jasmine. We went kind of long today, but ain't no wrong with that. Good conversation. As usual, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss when we drop a video. Now that you're done over here, head over to Jasmine's channel. It's called Bold Reflections. Check out all the videos that she dropped. She just dropped a new one. I was going to say yesterday, but for y'all, it's going to be Tuesday. She just dropped a new one Tuesday. It's about the effects of porn on your mind, according to science. Once you're done checking all the videos on her channel, head over to my channel. It's called It's Your Girl Saying. Check out all the live streams, the video games streams, videos for days, weeks, and years over there. So make sure to check that out, and we will see you guys next time.